Good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar event. My name is Joshua. I'm going to be your presenter today. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay here. It is noon Eastern time here. We're going to go ahead and get started. We're talking about a couple topics in Church Windows Payroll today. We're talking about the calculate adjustment function in Payroll, and we're going to be going through the calculating a bonus payment feature in Payroll as well. Before we get started, a few things. Click the little red arrow on the sidebar of your webinar control panel to get that out of the way, or drag it off to your second desktop if you have a dual monitor setup. Allows you to get a full visual effect of the presentation. We are recording today's webinar event, so you will be able to revisit this video out on our website on the support center here probably later today, but at latest probably tomorrow morning. We're doing a better job of getting this material out here for you to go back and revisit that. We are working out of P102, Payroll 102 workbook, pages 9 through 18. So if you have those payroll workbooks or the payroll workbooks, you may want to flip to that page, those pages, because that's the material I am using as the guide or the printed material for the presentation today. If you have questions, please type those into the web questions portion of the webinar control panel. I will do my best to keep an eye on those. I'm good about repeating the question for everyone so everyone understands what's being asked, and then we'll see what we can do to get those questions answered for you. All right, so let's jump into the material. So when you go to page 9, it talks about calculating a payroll adjustment. That's found by clicking here under Payroll, and the second option down, Calculate Adjustment. As it points out there in that paragraph there, it talks about using the calculate adjustment feature when you need to make a change to a person's pay history. This can be used when you begin to use the program. Say if you're wanting to enter the payroll data starting in the middle of the year, you can edit a person's totals or their taxes or their vacation or sick time, make changes to reported wages. Virtually anything about a person's pay record you can use the calculate adjustment to make that change or correction as the case may be. Now, not a calculate adjustment may not be the appropriate way to deal with correcting something about the payroll for someone, but if you have questions about that, please call us through support 800-533-5227. Our support technicians, myself included, will be happy to discuss or talk through that with you, okay? Basically, we're going to use this calculate adjustment feature today to enter vacation and sick time for an employee, that's starting, say, back on the start of the year. Basically, at the outset of a year, our employees have X number of, days, hours, or weeks that they have available for vacation or sick time. We want to put that on there so they see that on their pay stub, and they can use that throughout the year. Okay, so this is just a common use of the calculate adjustment function. I typically do most of my adjustments, most of my payroll adjustments for folks with one of two dates, either December 31st or January 1. But just to be clear, you can calculate a payroll adjustment at any point with a date in payroll at any point in the year, okay? So when we click under calculate adjustment, the first thing that it pops up is, warning, a check will not be created when calculating an adjustment. To create a check, you need to go and use the feature called Calculate Payroll, okay? So we're not creating a check. We're just getting vacation and sick time entered for an employee here, so this is perfectly appropriate and okay for that. Okay, so we're going to click OK on that, and it opens up our Calculate Adjustment 1 screen, and I do like to point out here that each one of our screens, when we're calculating anything in payroll, has a number associated with that, okay? So in this case, we're now at the window called Calculate Adjustment 1. So in this case, we're going to go back and we're going to backdate this to January 1 of 2019. You can also click the down arrow and choose it from the calendar if you wish. We're not adjusting for third-party sick pay, so we're going to simply click Next. We're not going to check that box, okay? So it takes a second here, and then it's generating that, and now we're on calculate adjustment 2, and we're having to choose which employees we're calculating the adjustment for, okay? I could technically do this at any point throughout the year, but again, in this case, our adjustment for our employees is January 1, okay? So I can choose it based on a pay type or period or department. I can choose to adjust for contractors or employees, but in this case, we're going to go up to the upper right here and choose the one that says specific employee/contractor, okay? When we change that, it now lists all of our employees because that's who we have selected. I'm going to click clear all, and we're going to choose Jimmy Hilliard. He's our newest employee, and then we're going to go ahead and click next. So again, I could do it for everybody if I want. In this case, just for the purposes of our webinar and speed and expediency, we're just going to choose one, okay? So then we're going to click next, okay? So one of the things that I like to talk about in terms of the adjustment feature is, and this is really important, is the system doesn't bring in any information that we have entered in the employee file. So if we've got, you know, hours or pay rates or deductions or allowances or anything entered in the employee file, it doesn't come in here, okay? Everything under our adjustment feature is set to 0, okay? It's waiting for us to tell it what we're wanting to adjust. So if I needed to do something with any of their reported hours or pay rate or allowances for a minister or something, or deductions or something, I could. I mean, again, it's bringing those in. It's just not entering any amounts. Okay, so Jimmy does participate in our health insurance plan, but notice all of our amounts and percents are set to 0. Pay hours and rates are all 0. Okay, so that's just an important thing to understand about the adjustment function. Everything is 0. We're not doing anything with our vacation and sick time here. So we're simply going to click next, okay? When we get to the calculate adjustment for window, we're going to click the button down here on the bottom right labeled browse adjustment, okay? So when we click on that, it opens up our browse edit calculated adjustment screen. We're on page 12 now of our workbook material. It opens up our browse edit calculated adjustments with the employee name or names listed at the top, and everything again is listed at the bottom as 0. So now we're going to click on the tab called accumulating values. So here now is where we would enter the amount of the value that we're wanting to give Jimmy for his vacation or sick time. So folks, one of the things that's important to understand is we use the term hours here, but technically this value can mean anything you wish. It could be hours, it could be days, it could be weeks, because technically you can subdivide any of them. Okay, so for the purposes of, again, of our webinar, we're going to use hours. So, and that's what it points out there in that section under accumulating values tab, is that you can, you know, if you enter them in days, a day can be still broken down, you know, in terms of breakdowns of quarter, half days by using decimals, you know, so 0.25 could break down a day, you know, quarters, or 0.5 for a half a day. So you just have to decide whatever this value is. A common one is hours, and that's what we're going to use here. So we're going to say Jimmy has earned or has 40 hours, 1 week of vacation time available at the start of the year, and he has 1 week of sick time available, okay? Once I have entered those, I would simply click apply, make sure it saves those values, and then I would move to the other employee if I had more at the top, and then I would, you know, and then I would just continue the process ad nauseum here, okay? Or notice down here it does have accumulated weeks too, if you wish, okay? Then once I'm finished with this, I would simply click OK. Okay, so then I can choose to print some reports here if I wish. That's what these are. This is if I choose to check some of the reports here, pay period earnings or deductions, but there's no earnings or wages here, so there's going to be technically nothing on these reports here. Okay, so it's just some reports I can print. Might be more important if I'm actually calculating the payroll. but there's 3 reports here I can print, but notice there's nothing on them. So then when I go to next, it's now asking me, what do I want to do? Post to payroll, transfer to accounting. I can leave transfer to accounting because there's nothing to transfer. It's going to tell me there's nothing to transfer in. So now I click finish, but I definitely have to post it to payroll. So it says payroll posted to employee file successfully. There are no payroll. There's nothing posted in there other than what I've added to that. See, so it now says there's no transfer, nothing to transfer, no records to transfer, okay? All right, so just an FYI real quick, because we've got to move on to the other topics here real quick. When I go to reports and history report, and I go to my employee detail hours report, and I run the report for Jimmy's record and click next, it's going to show, now I have some data in here, folks, for some other things, other pay in the year, but notice it shows right here, let me try to zoom in on this a little bit. Whoops, a little too far. So right here, it shows vacation earned and sick time earned. So he now has that time available here to use at any point throughout the year, okay? I just want to show you that that's the best way to determine if I've calculated these figures correctly. Run that history report, okay? So now when I go in and I want to calculate a payroll for Jimmy, say here we are October, we're going to change that back to the 15th. We can do that. Go to next. Again, I would choose specific employee contractor, click clear all. I go to next. So let's say Jimmy's taken a day of vacation this past pay period. I would now edit my regular hours worked lower by the amount that he is taking. So I would back that down to 37. I would then come over here to vacation, type in 8, put in the hourly rate, and then I've now then saying he is now applying 8 hours of vacation time to this particular check. And I click finish. Okay, and now I simply process the check like I would normally. And then when I go to next here, notice it says on my pay stub right here, I can zoom in a little bit again. Let's go scroll down. Right here it says vacation earned 40 and vacation used 8, available 32. So the system does know and allow me to be able to see, or us to see exactly, or the employee to see exactly how much vacation they have, how much they've used, and how much they have left. Okay? So that again is a common use of the feature called calculate adjustment. You can, but again, folks, you can use it to calculate anything as long as no money's changing hands and you don't need to print a check and pay somebody. Okay? All right, so with about 5 or 6 minutes left, let's talk about calculating a bonus payment. So when we're ready, just becomes kind of as we approach the end of the year, we're getting more calls about calculating bonus payments and things like that. But if we click under payroll, notice we've got the third one down called calculate bonus payment. Virtually just like our regular calculate payroll, it's popping up and asking us to enter a pay date. This isn't regular pay, so there is no pay period ended. It's just a date, what date are we paying them? So if I choose to go ahead and enter and say we're going to enter this for, say our December 15th pay, and we go to next, and again we're going to choose a specific employee, but I could do it for everybody. We're going to say we're going to calculate a bonus for our pastor. We go to next. Actually, no, because Larry's not paying in any taxes, so Jimmy's a better one. So we're going to say we're paying Jimmy a bonus. So the first thing that we want to talk about here is, notice on our calculate bonus payment 3, again, each one of the screens are numbered. It asks us, what is the amount of the bonus? Okay, so let's say we're going to give Jimmy a $250 bonus. So we're going to type in the bonus amount. And then we now need to jump down here and talk about gross up income, or do we want to have it subject to standard withholding? So when we're grossing up the income, what it's doing is it's basically adding into the bonus amount the amount of Social Security and Medicare that the employee would normally have withheld and would be paying in. we want Jimmy essentially to receive a check for $250, okay? We don't want it to be the $250 minus the amount of Social Security that they would be paying, okay? Or we can choose the standard withholding, and it will withhold federal income tax, any Social Security and Medicare that the employee would pay, and any local taxes or state if applicable, okay? So it's your choice. How much do you want the employee to actually receive? So for the purposes of our webinar, again, we're going to leave it to gross up, and we're going to go to next. And we're going to go to browse calculations, and I just want to point out here that here under our net pay, notice that our net pay is the $250 that we've given him as the bonus, okay? But notice here, down at the bottom under, say, federal gross taxable, it shows $270.71, okay? It's because we've added in the $20.71 that the employee would normally be having deducted as or being paying in for Social Security and Medicare. Hence the $16.78 and the $393. Okay, so we're basically, the bonus amount is actually $270.71. They're receiving $250, which is the actual amount of the bonus. Okay, so that's just an important distinction between the gross up option versus the standard withholding. Okay, so as long as that looks good, we would just cancel. Again, you can print some of the reports if you wish. By checking the boxes, we go to next. Then it's asking us very much the same typical type of questions that we would ask when we're calculating a payroll, post a payroll, yes or no, printing checks to be able to generate the bonus check, and we're going to transfer it into accounting. Of course, we want to do all of those things. And again, we would click finish. So then we're back to, posted to employee file successfully. And then it opens up our standard print checks, assign check numbers screen. And then when we print those checks, it transfers us into accounting, as the case may be. Okay. Assuming you have accounting, we would, of course, strongly recommend this. But this shows up as part of Jimmy's pay at the end of the year. Gets all added into his W-2 correctly. It shows up on our 941 properly. Everything about that is absolutely correct. Okay, so I just want to point out that on page 16 of our workbook, page P102 workbook, it does explain the difference between the gross up alternative or option and the standard withholding option that we have. Okay, I just didn't print the checks for the previous posting that we had for Jimmy. That's why it's showing 2 in here, folks. Okay, so I'm just kind of taking a quick look through this. Page 17 does talk about how it's adding in the amount of Social Security and Medicare as the amount of their check. So the actual amount of the bonus is actually higher by the amount of Social Security. So, all right, so that is our topic for the day.